Good Friday evening to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Welcome to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. We'll be joined by cleveland.com and Plain Dealer columnist Doug Lesmerises. And something a little different for you tonight. Doug and I are going to debate 4 topics, 3 Browns related, 1 baseball related. We have different sides of these opinions. It's going to be a healthy back and forth all show long. Let's welcome in Doug Lesmerises. Doug, as always, appreciate the time. You ready to do battle, Doug? I'm ready for you, buddy. We're going to begin. Cleveland Browns, your 2020 most valuable player, assuming they play a season, that is, but Browns MVP for the upcoming season. Who do you got?
Controversially, I will take the quarterback, Baker Mayfield. I know people are excited about what Kevin Stefanski might do with the run game, what Nick Chubb might be like this season. But listen, man, this is the modern NFL, baby. If your MVP is not your quarterback, I'm not sure your offense is working the right way. So I think the way Baker Mayfield's going to spread the ball around, they do have multiple options. Here's part of my strategy. I'm going to undercut you maybe on what you might say. Sure, Nick Chubb is great, but he's not going to have the ball sometimes. Baker Mayfield, Dave, I'm not sure you know the way that the football works. The ball comes to the quarterback first on every play. Mm-hmm. So I just think Baker as a point guard, not that he has to do it all by himself, but that he will be doing this. I think he's your guy, baby.
Yeah, you knew I was going with Nick Chubb, and I'm going to stick with Nick Chubb. And the reason I'm going to stick with Nick Chubb is they're going to continue to run the ball until people stop it with the upgraded offensive line, adding Jedrick Wills, adding Jack Conklin. Nick Chubb averaged over 5 yards a carry his first 2 years with a significantly less than great offensive line. This offensive line's been upgraded. He has averaged 5 yards a carry in his NFL career for 2 seasons. And Kevin Stefanski is going to run the ball, and Nick Chubb is going to set up the ability for Baker Mayfield to play. You mentioned, being a point guard. He turned the ball over too much last year. Baker Mayfield turned it over too much. They don't need him to go out and win the games. They need him to not lose the games in many instances this year. And he didn't do a great job of that last year. I will give you the offensive line, but I think Nick Chubb is the engine that makes this offense go.
In Baker Mayfield's defense, Antonio Callaway won't be dropping touchdowns at the goal line and turning them into interceptions this year. Part of my point with Nick Chubb is I'm not sure. No one's going to debate whether Nick Chubb is good or not. Of course he's good. But I'm not sure that Nick Chubb rushing for 2,000 yards is what the Browns want or what the Browns need. When you have Kareem Hunt here, when you are thinking long-term, not just this season, but maybe down the line with Nick Chubb, you can overdose Nick Chubb, right? Running backs, you don't want to wear this guy down. So I think it's possible. I don't know that Nick Chubb's going to get 27 carries a game in the first half of the season. Again, when you have Kareem Hunt here. And also, I think we've seen what Nick Chubb can do as a pass catcher. So part of what Nick Chubb will be involved with is going to be delivered by Baker Mayfield. I think Baker will be more comfortable. I've been following a guy named Sam Penix online who has been going back through Baker's entire season from last year, clip by clip on Twitter. I would encourage people to look at that. He's concluding Baker wasn't nearly as bad as some people think he was. He did make good throws. He did step up. Sometimes the play calling threw him off. Sometimes the pass rush got to him. But I do think people are on an upswing with Nick Chubb based on last year. And people might be wondering about Baker based on last year. I'm not one. I think Baker has a lot left out there. I think they'll both have very good 2020 seasons. But I think when you think about what Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper and Kareem Hunt and what other people in this offense will do, I think it's hard to find an MVP other than the quarterback because, as I've said before, hashtag too many good players. It's going to be hard. Maybe it'll be hard to figure out who the MVP is. You go back to the QB.
Let's look at the history with this offense. Dalvin Cook has set himself up to get a big payday based on what he had done in this offense that Kevin Stefanski has run. They're going to run a wide zone. That plays right into Nick Chubb's sweet spot. And the other thing is, this is going to be an offense that has an identity something it didn't really have a season ago. They haven't even played a game, and we already have a pretty good idea of what Kevin Stefanski's identity wants to be, and he wants it to be a guy that can run the ball and can break long runs. I think Nick Chubb, and I know Dalvin Cook is a heck of a running back. I think if you gave Kevin Stefanski and most people around the NFL their choice of the two, they take Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has the speed, and he can also run over people. This offense is tailor-made for a running back like Nick Chubb, a guy who's averaged 5 yards a carry in 2 NFL seasons, and a guy who doesn't complain at all.
Man, isn't this fun? Who's too many? Can you imagine back when we were been debating like who's going to be their MVP? Gary Barnidge or Isaiah Crowell? My gosh, I like this. Listen, I just think I have not looked up the numbers, and Dave, I would like to say as we argue here, I don't base my argument on numbers. I base my argument on things I randomly think for no apparent reason. I know people kind of believe that this is going to be like a run first or a run heavy offense. And I would just say again, it's the modern NFL and it's all relative. And I hope, I don't know that they're going to run their way to the playoff, right? It's great to have a running game, but I think that threat and that ability will make life easier, will make play action better for Baker Mayfield, will just help Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper and David Njoku and Rashard Higgins get open. And it's hard. Like, who wants to argue against Nick Chubb? I mean, my God. I mean, nobody wants to argue against that. I just think in the balance of things, I think it's possible that as we evaluate Kevin Stefanski, maybe people are getting too much of a read of really getting fired up about this run game when I still believe in the end, you throw to win. In the end, you throw to make big plays. All the stats will tell you how much more effective that is what you do. But when you have the balance, right, when you have the balance of the run game, that makes you that much better. And so as good as Nick Chubb is, and as important as that is, and I don't disagree with anything you said about Stefanski's scheme or ideas, I still think in the end that will be the balance to what will be a more effective, disciplined passing game led by Baker Mayfield.
And I'm with you on Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to have a good year. I think one of the reasons he's going to have a good year, though, is because of what they're going to ask him to do. I mean, he's going to take his shots downfield, and I think he's a good enough deep ball thrower. He's going to hit some of them. But I think what's going to set up everything else is Nick Chubb's ability to move the football and put this offense in second and middle, third and short situations instead of 3rd and 18. And I think Stefanski is disciplined enough in his play calling. We mentioned the modern pass game in the NFL, and that is true. That I won't argue. But the teams that make the playoffs are the ones that can run the ball effectively. And Kevin Stefanski's an Ivy League guy. He knows that. And that's what he's going to try to do with this football team. And he's got not only Nick Chubb, but he's got Kareem Hunt. And I think if you give the ball 20 times to Nick Chubb, he's going to be more effective than if you give it to him 27, 28 times. Because he's not going to be banged up.
Did the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, right? Did the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? I forget sometimes, actually, right? They won it, right? And I know that their quarterback is Patrick Mahomes. And I know that their running back used to be Kareem Hunt, and now he's here. And I don't remember who their running back is. I know they drafted one, but they won the Super Bowl without a running back that I can name. So, and I know that the Patriots had Tom Brady, and I know that they had, I don't know, Martin's still their running back. I don't know who their running back was for the past 15 years. It's a QB league, baby. So, and I think if you believe we've only scratched the surface still of what Odell Beckham can be in Cleveland, right? And if we see Odell Beckham peak, if we see Odell Beckham be as good as he's ever been, that's going to be because he's catching balls from Baker Mayfield. And I think just in terms of, I think that's going to provide something. We saw, I think, a fraction of what that could be. I'm not arguing for Odell, but I'll argue.
Now, I will say the team that was winning most of that Super Bowl game was the San Francisco 49ers, who were quarterbacked by like Jimmy Garoppolo, and they had two running backs, Matt Breida, and they also had Raheem Mostert. Both were big-time running, and they ran the ball effectively, and they had the wheels fall off because their quarterback couldn't make the plays, but their running back put them in a position to be Super Bowl champs, and their quarterback was nowhere near Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes should have like an S on his chest. I'm not going to argue that with you. I don't think Baker Mayfield's quite there. Could he get there? We'll see. But Pat Mahomes, you can't count Pat Mahomes in that. And Brady, you're pulling out one of the all-time greats that's played the position. There's one of him in the world.
Don't tell me what I can't do in an argument. I'll pull out Johnny Unitas if I want to. I just do think, again, I mean, it's a great issue for the Browns to have, but I think in the end, to your point, I mean, it is going to be balanced, right? And it might be, we might be able to have this argument in week 17 and be having the same argument because it's not clear. And I think maybe if it's not clear, maybe that's the best answer for the Browns. That half the people would vote for Baker Mayfield, half the people would vote for Nick Chubb, and either of them could make a really strong argument. And if that's the case, then I think we're probably getting ready for the Browns in a playoff game.
Yeah, without question. That would be fun to debate. Are they going to win a first-round playoff game? All right, round one is done. Time for us to take a quick timeout. Round two of our debates revolves around one of the guys that we picked as an MVP for the Browns in 2020. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art BetAmerica kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had two choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Our debate continues. Doug Lesmerises and I, a 4-round battle on this show. We've already talked about who we think the Browns' 2020 MVP is. Time for us to move on to round two. And the question before you, Doug, would you give Nick Chubb a long-term, big-time contract I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll throw it out there. Is Nick Chubb worth a big contract?
So my answer is no, but that kind of actually maybe. And in the end, what my answer really is it's not definitely, because it's not a question about Nick Chubb. It's a question about, and as we know, how much running backs are worth in the NFL. And the idea for the Browns is not to, there's a difference between gathering great players and putting a team together. And this is not a debate about how good Nick Chubb is. Of course he's good. The question is, when you have a certain amount of resources, when you have a salary cap, when you have how much value certain positions bring to you, and we can see what is coming with the Browns, with Baker Mayfield and Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and the young players that they have on this roster, there are going to be tough decisions. And if you thought it was a tough decision whether to sign Joe Schobert or not, get ready, because this is what good teams deal with. And hopefully the Browns will be a good team on the field and not just a good collection of players as they deal with this stuff. But I just don't think your answer, it's very hard for it to just be a blanket yes, because Nick Chubb, roughly, I think his average contract right now is a second-round pick. He's like 36th highest paid running back in the league, right? Who would you rather have right now for the 2020 season, Nick Chubb or Ezekiel Elliott? Maybe there's a debate. Maybe you'd say Zeke, but not by much. Ezekiel Elliott's making $16 million a year. Nick Chubb making $1.8 million a year. If you automatically give Nick Chubb a huge contract, you're creating that kind of debate. So it's not really just about Nick Chubb. It's about the next Nick Chubb you might be able to draft to replace him, to better allocate your resources. This is what good teams have to deal with. This might be a very sticky problem, but if this is your problem as a franchise, that's a good problem to have. Too many good players who deserve too much money.
Yeah, it's one the Browns haven't had to deal with really since they've come back in '99. But I will say this. Again, Nick Chubb only under contract for 4 years. Don't have that fifth-year option because he was not a first-round draft pick. I would extend him, and I would extend him at a decent, I'd give him top 10, top 5 running back money. And the reason I would is because in this particular offense, the way the Browns want to play football, if you do not have an elite running back, you're always going to be going out trying to find one. Can you do that? Maybe. But it's taken the Browns a long time to find a guy that looks like an elite running back. I've seen a lot of William Greens in that orange helmet, and I like Nick Chubb a whole lot more.
I think part of the decision here is, and let me pull a straw man into the debate here, is it's easy to say, do you sign Nick Chubb? It's harder to say, would you rather sign Nick Chubb or this player? Because that really is what the discussion is in the end, right? Because it's not like if they don't sign Nick Chubb, they're just going to put the money in their pocket, right? They're going to give it to somebody else. So I don't know specifically what this might come down to, but what if it came down to Nick Chubb or Denzel Ward? What if it came down to Nick Chubb or finding a way to keep Odell? And maybe you'd say Nick Chubb in each of those circumstances. But what I'm telling you is these are the type of hard decisions they're going to have to make. And the discussion is, yes, I understand what you're saying. We know how good Nick Chubb is, but the 49ers got to the Super Bowl last year with, people are talking about, people are giving up on Raheem Mostert, and he was a Brown one time. And it's like, yeah, he was on like 6 NFL teams, and he never really did anything. And then he got in a good team with an offensive line, and he looked good. If you have a good line, right, they just spent money on an offensive line. You have to pay Jack Conklin. You're going to have to pay Jedrick Wills if he's good down the line. You got to pay. They just gave JT Treader a contract. Part of it is, too, would you rather pay the line or the running back? Because they just invested a lot in the offensive line. And in the end, when you're good and guys start getting older, you can't keep everything. And so part of the question is, for a good offense, and this is what people have dealt with in the NFL, what is it more about when you have a good running game? How much is it about the individual skill of the back? How much is it about an effective scheme that sets up the run and the opportunity to succeed there? How much is it about the offensive line? How much is it about the quarterback who allows you to take focus off the run game? man, it gives me a knot in my stomach to like think about Nick Chubb being great and leaving. But at the minute Ezekiel Elliott signed his contract in Dallas, people started wondering, it's not about how good he is. It's, is that the best way to make the Cowboys win a Super Bowl by spending that money there? Which is why, man, it's great when you have these windows, you've got to hit. You've got to hit on these young guys while they're here. Because right now, I mean, Nick Chubb, he's making about 1.8, right, on his contract. He's a $12 million running back right now. He's just not a lot. He doesn't have to be paid that. He's as good as that. You're getting a $10 million extra right now to spend elsewhere. It's why you got to win early with these guys. Great job, John Dorsey, drafting him, but also you just might have to believe in your front office that they can find another back in the second or third round who can be close enough that the money is better used elsewhere.
Well, you used the 49ers as a example. Look at their wide receivers. For that matter, look at the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers. Some late round picks. Now you do have the key to both of those, the two teams in the Super Bowl, both of them had elite tight ends in George Kittle and Travis Kelce, which tells you why the Browns went out and spent on Austin Hooper. But the wide receivers, that might be, if you're asking me, do I invest as heavily in the wide receivers? Probably not. Probably not in this offense that Kevin Stefanski likes to run, and even the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Sammy Watkins was a retread. I mean, they had lesser wide receivers. We have two big-time contracts sitting there out wide in an offense that often likes to use two tight ends and one wide receiver. What do you do? I think that's where I think you get the money to pay Nick Chubb, to be completely honest about it.
Yeah. So hey, wow, Dave Bacon wants to run Jarvis and Odell out of town.
That's not what I said.
when you have to talk about who you're not gonna pay, right? So that's the idea. But there, I don't know that I disagree with that, right? But again, right now, well, you sure as heck don't have much behind them. So then you have to go out and find cheaper free agents, or you have to target receivers in the draft, right? Because maybe Donovan Peoples-Jones comes along. This is the task at hand, and it's fun to think about this again. Building a team to win is hard. It's just as hard to keep teams together to keep winning, because in the end, and again, I hope we're doing this for 10 years. When you look at what the Seattle Seahawks have been in their successful run, they've had Russell Wilson at quarterback and Bobby Wagner at linebacker, and basically everybody else has changed. When you look at what the Patriots did with Tom Brady, I mean, it was Tom Brady and everybody else moved around him. When you are a team that continues to win, you have to pick one or two tent poles and realize no matter how much fans love guys, no matter how productive they might be, you cannot keep all your good guys if you are a good team. And so the Browns are going to have to say goodbye at some point to some of these guys. You know, it's one of those things, like Baker's a must, right? I mean, if Baker proves it, right, he's a must. And then I just don't know that there's much luxury. I think if you make your tent poles a quarterback and a guy like Myles Garrett as a defensive star, as a pass rusher, I'm not sure any team has the luxury of adding another must-keep guy to that list. Even somebody as productive as Nick Chubb, even in an offense that would seem to value the running back as much as this offense might.
Here's my thought about Nick Chubb again. I think what you do, there's no fifth-year option. So going into his fourth year, you try to extend him out because you're going to be at a low level. You bump him up, significantly from what he would make in the fourth year of that contract and extend it out so that you can show him, hey, by signing this deal, you're making this much more money potentially, and it's a lesser cap hit. That would be my strategy with Chubb. I'd try to extend him out before that fourth year hits so that I can get him for the fifth, sixth, maybe even the seventh year. And then at that point, you're paying him a decent amount of money. probably not up quite where Ezekiel Elliott is, but he can go back and say, well, man, I'm making significantly more than I would make in the fourth year. They believe in me. I like this. I see it going in the right direction. This is a guy that has averaged 5 yards carry for every carry he's had in 2 years of the NFL. A guy who was over 1,000 yards his rookie year. They gave him the ball in a meaningless game and he went under 1,000. A guy that never complained when, the offense was psychotic at times and didn't give him the ball last year because there was no feel. All he did was take the ball, was a good teammate, and did everything he could to help this team win. Those are the kind of guys you want in your locker room. That's why I think you extend them.
This sounds to me like the Francisco Lindor script, which sounds great on the team side. Here's the thing. You just laid out a case, and I think we all do this at times. You laid out a case about like what a great guy Chubb is. I think sometimes the greater the guy is, we accidentally sometimes think like, he's such a great guy, like he'd take the extension. He doesn't need to become a full free agent, right? What a great guy. When we know how good he is, right? You know who else knows how good Nick Chubb is? Nick Chubb and his agent. So what you just laid out is what Andrew Berry is going to do. Andrew Berry has said that. That is their strategy. And Joe Schobert, they didn't, because Andrew Berry wasn't here a year ago, they didn't try that with Joe Schobert. They got to the point, and then they didn't want to pay what Joe Schobert was going to make as a free agent, and they lose him. Andrew Berry has said, we want to sign our young guys. We want to keep them. We want to get moving on that early. That's why they're reportedly talking about this kind of stuff with Myles Garrett. So you can understand that strategy, but you can't make a player agree to your strategy to keep him. And that is the thing I think we have to realize, right? They have short shelf lives. Mm-hmm. They have to get their money in contract too. And we just have seen enough times. Dalvin Cook in Minnesota is making noise about this. Ezekiel Elliott's situation was not easy before basically the Cowboys gave in and gave him almost everything he wanted, right? I agree. And I think Andrew Berry agrees with everything you laid out, Dave. I'm just not sure that we can automatically assume that Nick Chubb and his agent agree.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to incentivize it in that fourth year to make them sit down and look at it. The other thing to keep in mind, unlike baseball, most of these contracts are not guaranteed. And here's an earth-shattering one for you, Doug. A lot more football players get injured than baseball players and miss seasons. So you have to make it worth his while that, mitigates some of that, maybe front-load it a little bit to make it worth his while. That's how I think you convince Nick Chubb it's a good idea to sign on. If you wait till he's a free agent, he's going to be up there in the Ezekiel Elliott realm.
And it's just one of those situations. I mean, if the guy dropped a 2,000-yard season, so now we get into. Here's the thing with some of this stuff. If you want to keep a guy, sometimes you're almost better off as a fan rooting for him to not be super awesome right away, right? Which nobody wants to do. It's like, oh, what if Nick Chubb is not the best running back in the NFL this year? It increases your chances of keeping him long term. It's just a tough dance. But the point of this is the Browns have not had to do this dance because this is not a problem they've had. They have not had to deal with having great players reach this point of their careers. This is new to them, but this is where Andrew Berry is going to make his money, right? John Dorsey, when he came in, he made his bones by going out and adding guys, right? By drafting Baker Mayfield and by trading for Odell Beckham Jr. There are enough guys in place. Great. Okay. Andrew Berry did sign Austin Hooper and Jack Conklin and guys like that. But navigating the decisions, first of all, prioritizing who they're going to try to keep, and then finding ways to get this done, extend guys early, manage the cap. This is not an easy thing to do. So I do think Andrew Berry is going to do what you said, but I also think Andrew Berry is going to have a line in the sand. That even when you're he's going to have a line that he's going to say, we just can't go there. It doesn't make sense when you look at the balance sheet of how to build a successful NFL franchise. It doesn't make sense to spend that much money on running back. And I just think it's very possible, even in everything you laid out of extending them early, trying to incentivize to sign now, you get more in your fourth year. I just think his line in the sand might end up short of what a running back who might have proven that he's one of the best 5 running backs in the league. I just think their lines might be too far apart to get it done.
Doug Lesmerises, a sign of progress with the Browns roster that we are actually having these conversations, which is always good. We're going to step aside, take time out here on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Round 3 of Doug's and My Debate coming up. Is it a make or break season for one of the Browns' key players? Doug and I will go head to head when More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition continues. Stay with us.
Celebrate Naturestone's 30-year anniversary with a free Naturestone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making Naturestone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit Naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say, it's not just a floor, wow, it's Naturestone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Round 3 of the great debate between Doug Lesmerises, columnist from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We stay with our Cleveland Browns, and the question before you, Doug, is 2020 a make or break season for former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield, the Browns quarterback, his 3rd season as an NFL quarterback?
Nope, because he's back for year 4 no matter what he does. And you still have a full year in year 4 to evaluate what he's going to do. Boom, out.
Yeah, I disagree with you. And here's where my thought process is. They've put everything around him to be successful. They've given him the tackles, one of the best tackles in the draft, best right tackle on the market. Need a tight end. We got a tight end. You got Landry and Beckham. You got Chubb. You got Hunt. There are never going to be this many pieces around Baker Mayfield to be successful. And the year he had last year was a little bit of a step backward. I mean, it probably wasn't as horrendous as it felt because everybody expected so much from him. But he's got to show progress, particularly in turning the ball over. If he doesn't, I mean, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, those are 2 guys that were number 1 overall picks, as highly thought of as Baker when he came out, whose teams have given up on him.
You have fallen into my trap because Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston are reasons to say that, no, it's not a make or break year for Baker Mayfield, because both those guys got 4 or 5 years to prove it. They didn't get bailed on after 3 years, and they weren't as good as Baker. Marcus Mariota was the starter into year 4. It wasn't until and then into year 5. It wasn't until in year 5 that the Titans went to Ryan Tannehill, and then they gave up on Marcus Mariota. But he got 4+. Jameis Winston got 5 full. He's not there now, He got 5 years in Tampa. So they are not going to give up on Baker after 3 years. And the reason is, yes, good players around him. Year one, Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley for half the year. Greg Williams and Freddie Kitchens for the second half of the year. Year two, Freddie Kitchens, Todd Monken, who knows what's going on. Year three, Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt. I think if it doesn't look great, if it feels like a break year, right? Say he doesn't make in year three. I think you would look and still say, listen, this guy has shown enough flashes. Can we give the man a second year in an offense before we bail on this? Can we give him a second year with Kevin Stefanski before we make our final decision? So it's not at least until year four that you would break on this guy. When you draft a quarterback number one, part of what you get is patience, because you have to. You have to have a certain degree of patience, or what the heck are you doing? And the Browns, when they bailed on Brandon Weeden and Johnny Manziel and Brady Quinn and everybody else, they were never drafted high enough where you had to give yourself that patience. And they probably didn't deserve the patience. This is part of why Baker Mayfield might work. So, yeah, I get it. I don't disagree. Yeah, there's a lot of good players around him. But he's changing his footwork. He's going to lead with his other foot. He's got a new quarterbacks coach. We have a pandemic. They haven't practiced. He hasn't worked with anybody. That's a built-in excuse. It's crazy to me that you would get to the end of year three and be like, break. Nope, not it. He is not our guy. It's Case Keenum time. That's it. That idea is insane to me. But if you are saying make or break year, that's what a break would be, right? Break means he's not the starter in year four. And I just don't see a scenario where that happens, even if he throws 10 touchdowns and 40 picks. I think there's still enough built-in things you'd say one more year before we're at make or break.
Tick, 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 tick. The clock's running on their ability and their window because of all the guys they have to pay. If they can make a determination, if he Jameis Winston's, the season and leads the league in interceptions, even though he throws for, 5,000 yards and doesn't lead them to significant improvement, and he doesn't show improvement, you're darn right they're going to be moving on from him. They're not going to. They don't have the luxury of being patient because time is ticking, as we've alluded to all show long. They have a window. If he is not making progress, they have to identify, is this our franchise guy? I happen to think he will make progress and he will be their franchise guy. But if he goes out and has a year worse than last year, I think they have an awfully tough time rationalizing, this is our franchise quarterback. Awfully tough time. They got to start looking.
Jameis Winston was 3-10 as a starter in year three. He was the starter in year four and the starter in year five.
And now,
but we're not talking about, because the whole point is you don't have to make a decision on whether he's your long-term answer at quarterback after year three, right? Because you can still wait on the contract at whatever. You can still wait. Year four then becomes or make or break year. If it's year four, I agree. I just don't agree almost on year three, no matter what. Mitch Trubisky is the argument against it, because Mitch Trubisky broke in year three, and now Nick Foles is in Chicago, and Mitch Trubisky might not be the starter for the Bears. So, but that was a little extreme, I thought. And I think even though Mitch Trubisky, again, I think they had a 13-win team in year two and got to the playoffs and would have gotten farther in the playoffs if they'd made a field goal. That was defense fueled. That was Khalil Mack fueled. I mean, that is a team I think that feels like they have everything in place and maybe they don't have a quarterback to get them over the top. I think that would be, if it feels like in year three the Browns defense is wrecking everybody and everything else is clicking and Baker singularly is holding them back. I mean, I guess it would have to be, it's so extreme because it's not just about Baker looking like he's not good. It's about everything else is clicking and Baker's holding you back. And the thing that, to the point of, you have to take advantage of this window with the young players. The window you're trying to take advantage is the quarterback's window. So actually, if Baker is not the guy, it kind of reopens the window, because the whole idea is you want to win with your franchise quarterback before you have to pay your franchise quarterback. And if Baker's not your franchise quarterback, now you're on the franchise quarterback search again. And maybe you think, well, we're going to try to win a Super Bowl with Case Keenum, but you know what? We don't have to pay him all that much. We can spend money on other things. Maybe you think we're going back in the draft. We're going to try a new young quarterback again. And you reopen the window. So it's like, if you bail on the guy that you drafted number one, it almost resets your clock. Because yes, there's a clock on Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, and Denzel Ward. But Baker is the clock. So if it's a make or break year and you break the clock, when you break your clock, Dave, that you want to break, guess what? It stops ticking. So I'm telling you, it is going to continue to tick into year 4 at the very least. I think it would be, I said what, 10 touchdowns and 40 interceptions? Okay. If that's what it is, it's probably broken. That's extreme. I think it would have to be so extreme. I think it would be so extreme, and there's enough built-in excuses. And again, COVID-19 is the extra thing. No OTAs, however the preseason or preseason games and preseason practice may or may not be affected. If the season itself is affected, holy moly, wouldn't you just automatically say, no matter what, we're bringing Baker Mayfield back for year 4?
Now the thing is, Baker Mayfield's your point guard. What if your point guard is passing to J.R. Smith instead of LeBron? That's a tick, tick, tick. He needs to be in sync, or you go back to, hey, we're picking in the top 10 in the draft again. Boy, isn't this fun?
I just think they have run through quarterbacks so quickly here. And as much as so many people have begged for patience by the Cleveland Browns, begged for patience with GMs, begged for patience with coaches, I think you also beg for patience with quarterback. And as hard as that is to do, again, this guy flashed it enough as a rookie. He really did. He really did. It's not like he's never shown anything. I think it would be jumping the gun to an extreme amount, especially in the first year. Listen, people are really in on Kevin Stefanski, and I'm not going to not be in on Kevin Stefanski. But let's just remember, almost every coach says they were better in year 2 than in year 1, right? Kyle Shanahan, won 10 or 11 games in his first 2 years. It still takes time sometimes, even when you have a lot of things in place. And as excited as I think people should be, I'm not going to tell people to not be excited for the Browns. I also think you have to understand, with the first-year head coach and a new offense in these trying times, it might not look perfect. And I just think if it doesn't look perfect, you got to run it back as much as you can, pretty much the same in year 4. Listen, your left tackle is a rookie who hasn't ever played left tackle, right? I mean, we love listing all the wonderful things about the Browns. They gave Austin Hooper a gazillion dollars. Baker Mayfield's like never thrown him a pass. They haven't ever run an actual play together so far because everything's screwed up. There's just enough things in place that there are going to be excuses there if it doesn't look great, which means no break.
Well, I disagree, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think Baker Mayfield has a pretty good year, and the Browns do as well. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Round 4 of this great debate. We'll move on to baseball. Stay with us. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will continue. Doug Lesmerises and I back after this timeout.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week, and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners edition continues. Dave Bacon will be rejoined by Doug Lesmerises. We've talked a lot about the Browns. Time to shift focus. We're going to talk baseball, Major League Baseball, the one sports organization league that can't really seem to get anything together. Doug, is it worth coming back for a 60, 65 game season in 2020 is the question before you to debate here.
Does anyone really think that, like, oh, man, I love that 162 game baseball season. You can't give me a whole 162. What's the point? I'm not sure baseball should be a 60 game season every year. Yeah. So if I were baseball, if I had steams on my face and I were baseball, I would not want to risk having a season wiped out and people not missing me, because people seem fired up about the idea of like the NBA coming back for this playoff run, and people are very curious about whether we're going to have football in the fall and what it might look like. I'll tell you what, and this is not a unique opinion, what the NHL did to itself when it wiped out a season. I know this is a different circumstance, but it just, I think it relegated itself to a different tier on the sports listings of Americans. And I think baseball is at risk of people realizing that, yeah, I can live without baseball. It's fine. It's there in the background. But I think baseball, as we all, I think, probably agree, is kicking itself in the butt right now. And I'm not sure why. And whether you want to blame the owners mostly, which is probably fair, but also blame the players as well. For the interest that people have in baseball, I think those players are overpaid. I think it could use a restructuring of how everything works. But I think for its own sake, if it thinks that it can just, because it's not dealing with coronavirus anymore, it's fighting over how to come back about it. I think a lot of people will just not be mad at baseball. There's one thing, you want people to be mad at baseball. The risk is apathy. The risk is like, did baseball come back? I didn't notice. And I think that's what baseball is risking if it continues to fight over this and end up with zero. So to me, almost any number is better than zero. 20, 30, 40 to me is a better situation for the game and for fans than zero.
It is a better situation for the fans, but you alluded to it. Baseball's broke. The system is broke. It's been broke for a while. Rob Manfred is worried about silly things like pitch counts and 3-inning minimums and ignored what was evident to most fans this system, the way the financial system works without a salary cap, where teams like the Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, and Cubs can outspend their mistakes, and everybody else is kind of relegated to, oh, we got this player, but he's a free agent, and one of these big market teams is going to drop down a lot of money and pay him, and then he's going to go, and it's broke. If it means going away for a year, 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is, so that they can come back with a system that works financially, they need to do that, because this is not going to be a short-term thing. They have a collective bargaining agreement that expires. That's the silly part of this. They're arguing over things, and they have a collective bargaining agreement that's in place, and they're worried about the negotiations for that start after next season. So these guys have missed an opportunity. They could have been playing in like 2 weeks, but they can't agree on the revenue structure of it. And it's, well, this agreement said this, and the commissioner can do this, but we're going to file a grievance. I mean, these guys need to get together, let it go away, and come back, and let's have it so that it is a more level playing field. And I understand the differences because it's driven by local TV dollars, which there's a huge disparity of. Hundreds of millions of dollars difference in revenue. And I find it interesting that there's reportedly 8 teams that don't want a season. My guess is those are the bottom 8 teams in terms of local television revenue, because there's just no way they can compete. And that number would be indicative of having a difficult time passing anything. So I'm not opposed to him not playing this year if they can come back and have a structure that is significantly more fair across the board. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that some of these owners went out and signed people to $300-400 million contracts. That's one guy of 25 on a major league roster. I mean, if it's a position player, it's one of 8. You can pitch around him. You can roll the ball in every time he comes up to the plate, and he can't hurt you. It's ludicrous.
I mean, it is broken. It's just, I don't know, do you have to always drive off the cliff to fix your car? Can't you just get an oil change in half an hour? Why do you have to total your car to fix it? I get how negotiations work. I mean, before I agreed to do this debate format, I mean, I demanded several $100 million to take part in this. It's a very long, drawn-out negotiation. But we didn't end the show and come back in a year and say, now we're going to do a debate format. We figured it out. So I just, they're all so stupid. They aren't who they think they are. None of them are. Their role in American society, I think, is not what it thinks it is. And if it does, if they agree with you, we're gonna break it, fix it, then man, I don't know. You better come back with 7-inning games, 2.5 hours or less, a salary cap, fireworks in the outfield. I don't know. You better come back with a game that's going to be more interesting and relevant, and you better come back with a way to promote your players, and you better come back with a way to have fun and it come into the modern age in a lot of ways. And I know there are traditional baseball fans listening to this, but none of us can pretend that baseball has kept up with the time. And just the relevance of the NBA and the NFL, I think, to the average American sports fan is so much greater. They have to find a way to appeal to younger viewers. They have to find a way, I think, to encourage and fund youth programs in this country across a wide range, a diversity of communities. So I don't know. Does anybody have any faith in them? You're so sick of it, and you just shake your head with all the things going on in the world, what they are fighting over. I still think, why do they have to be attacked? Can you just figure out the 50 or 60 game season, and then when it's over, say, man, we really they're coming up on it. Figure that out later. Why do you have to, at this time in American history, why do you have to use this time during a great upheaval, societal change for the better, a pandemic like we haven't seen in 100 years, and now we're also going to fight over the monetary structuring of a sport in decline? Play and then get to that stuff. I don't know. That's probably naive, but I'm sick. Along with everybody else.
You used the fixing the car analogy. They're driving around trying to find an Indy pit crew to fix their 75 Gremlin because it's going back and forth and they're getting nowhere. It makes no sense. I am a huge baseball fan. I will watch teams that are not Indians, play games. It's broke, and the thing is, what the players and what the owners have shown is they're incredibly out of touch with, the average viewer, their average fan, because there is, 18% unemployment, and they're arguing because they're not getting 100% of their prorated salaries, or they're not making, the players want, $600 million more. It's ludicrous. You're out of touch with what the people who pay to watch you are going through. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse time to come out and argue about that kind of money.
No, I agree. And I think everybody on the outside can see that. And clearly the people on the inside can't. So, but from a standpoint of, again, I just think I would not put a limit on a number of games. To me, there's no limit of like, well, if we can't play at least X, then it's not worth it. Because I just think if it's safe, and that's what I've said through this whole discussion, if it's safe, and as we see, college football programs return and players testing positive for COVID-19 and all the discussions about how you might play in a bubble or how you can, I don't think there's any assurance that it is safe. So that's something you've got to work on. And you can't let the distraction of a monetary fight take you away from, do you have the things in place that if and when you do play, it's going to be as safe as it possibly can be at a time when we see a lot of COVID spikes in states around the country. But if you can figure out, I'd play 2 months if I could. Let's play 40 games, maybe only play in your division or something. We'll expand playoffs, and let's have some baseball. Let's have a sport. Let's have something going on. And if they don't see that, this was an opportunity for them. That's the thing. It wasn't just an opportunity to keep status quo. It was an opportunity to seize the moment, because if we hadn't gone back to football, we didn't have the NBA, and baseball is outside. It's more naturally distanced. There's a lot of things that seemingly would make it easier to play baseball than some other sports. Maybe that's naive too, but it felt like an opportunity for baseball to maybe try to pull more fans back in, and instead they're eliminating the casual fan and kicking their loyal fans in the butt, and they've just completely blown it.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is spring training is 33 games. So if they play 40 games, it's like a extended spring training, and then you're going to have the same issues that you can't solve right now come back up when the collective bargaining agreement is up in 2021. So they need to get it in order pretty quickly, because they could come back, play 60 games, and then if they go back and there's a lockout or there's a strike, they're still going to lose everybody. I mean, they need a long-term solution, and I think your analogy at the beginning to the NHL may be more accurate than you think. I think they're in danger of losing a whole lot of standing in the sports hierarchy.
I'm an old white guy, and I don't care about baseball nearly as much as I used to care about it. And if it had been the only thing going, if they had found a way to get this rolling sooner, yep, I would have done it. And as it stands right now, there's not a hole in my life because there's not baseball. And it's not about me, but it's just, again, I'm sure there are younger people. I am the demographic. You and I are the demographic, right? I mean, if you're losing us, man, yep, I'm not sure who you're going to.
Yeah, and I agree. They missed a huge opportunity, and the one thing they need to do, they need to get it right, and they need to get it right long term, and they need to do it in a hurry, because tick tock, time's running out on Major League Baseball. Doug Lesmerises, final thought. I enjoyed it. I still don't think you're right, but I enjoyed it.
I won. I won. This is the only. I've actually never had a fight like this, so I enjoy fighting in this Zoom world in my basement where no one can hurt me. But that was fun.
All right, appreciate it. Doug Lesmerises, columnist for cleveland.com and the Plain Dealer. You can read them in the pages of the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Les Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. Les will be back in the chair on Monday from 6 to 7, and I will be back here again next Friday night. Hope to see you then. Have a great week, everybody, and stay safe.